He sits in a glass tower suspended above the sleeping city, the kind of building that looks impressive only from the outside. Inside, it is just fluorescent light and silence. His tie is loosened, his inbox still full, and the cursor on his screen blinks like a metronome keeping time with his fading sense of purpose. 20 years ago, he was certain this was the path. Everyone said so. Professors said it, recruiters said it, his father said it. Pick a stable career, climb, build, one day you'll be free. He didn't argue, he was too young to think he could, and so he climbed. Every promotion felt like progress. Every raise felt like proof. The applause of the world drowned out the quiet voice inside asking if any of this was actually his. Now, at 45, he stares at the glow of the city below and wonders how a man can follow every rule and still end up feeling like a stranger in his own life. He can trace the milestones of his career, but not the moment he chose them. They feel less like decisions and more like steps on a moving walkway that never slowed down long enough for him to question where it was taking him. That is the hidden tragedy. We mistake motion for direction. We confuse reward for meaning. And somewhere along the way, the map we were handed becomes a prison we defend as if we drew it ourselves. He thought he was building a future, but maybe the future was building him. Maybe he was never steering his career at all. Maybe something unseen was steering him. Adam Smith never intended to write a gospel, but somewhere along the way, that is exactly what happened. In 1776, in The Wealth of Nations, he described something he called the invisible hand. It was not a law, not a command, not a moral code. It was an observation. Smith noticed that when individuals pursued their own gain, they could sometimes, unintentionally, contribute to the greater good. A baker does not bake bread out of love for the public. He bakes because he wants to make a living, and yet people eat. That was the entire point. It was never meant to be a moral justification for greed or a blueprint for human purpose. It was simply a mechanism, but the world read it as scripture. The idea escaped its context, was stripped of its nuance, and became a creed. If everyone chases their self-interest, society will prosper. Work harder, compete more, rise faster. The market will reward you, and when it does, that reward is proof you are valuable. It sounds empowering, but it is quietly corrosive, because hidden inside that creed is a fatal illusion. It tells you that value comes from market recognition, not from who you are. It suggests that the system is fair, that effort will always lead to elevation, that the game is honest. Smith never said that. He never promised fairness. He never promised happiness. He only noted that markets have currents, not that those currents carry everyone to shore. In fact, Smith feared the opposite. In the Theory of Moral Sentiments, the lesser-known companion to his famous book, he warned that people become enchanted by the riches of others, believing wealth must bring happiness when it rarely does. He wrote that societies are drawn to admire the wealthy, though they may be the most worthless of men, and that this misplaced admiration corrupts our sense of virtue. To him, the danger was clear. If we worship wealth, we will excuse anything to obtain it, and in doing so, we will hollow out our character. That warning was buried under centuries of misreadings. What survived instead was the seductive half-truth. Pursue your self-interest and you will be rewarded. We taught it to children as motivation. We taught it in schools as economics. We built entire career ladders on its foundation. But here is the truth Smith knew and we forgot. The invisible hand serves the market, not you. Its concern is equilibrium, not fulfillment. It does not care if you are happy. It only cares that the machine keeps running. If your ambition feeds the machine, it will reward you. If your ambition does not, it will quietly discard you. And so millions of men build careers under the illusion that the market is a meritocracy, when in reality it is only a mechanism that does not love you, does not see you, and does not care who you become. If the invisible hand is not a promise of fairness, then what is it? It is a sorting machine. It moves people where the system needs them, not where they belong. And it does this so quietly, so elegantly, that most never realize they are being moved at all. The market sets rewards like bait, and human behavior aligns around them. When a sector is short on labor, wages rise, media attention follows, and prestige soon attaches itself to the job. It begins to glow, and when something glows, people run toward it. That is how entire generations end up in places they never chose. They follow the light. They see others rewarded and assume reward means meaning. They never stop to ask who lit the path or what waits at the end of it. Consider what happened with technology and finance in the early 2010s. As venture capital flooded Silicon Valley and Wall Street boomed, those fields radiated status. Universities reshaped curricula to feed them. Parents nudged children toward coding boot camps and investment internships. By the late 2000s, tens of thousands had poured in chasing prestige, and for a brief moment the rewards were real. Then the cycle turned. Layoffs swept through tech in 2023, wiping out entire teams overnight. Burnout rates spiked to over 60% among white-collar workers. What looked like a personal choice was just a mass migration responding to market signals, and when those signals faded, the people were discarded like outdated hardware. This is not failure, this is design. The invisible hand does not whisper about your potential. It broadcasts prices, and we confuse prices for purpose. That confusion is not accidental. It is cultivated. Schools frame education as a path to employability rather than a search for truth. Parents measure their children's prospects in income brackets. Media celebrates the most successful under 30, not for what they built, but for how fast they monetized it. In that environment, ambition stops being a personal calling and becomes a market reaction. Status becomes the signal. When society applauds a role, applications flood in. When a company announces record bonuses, resumes pile up. When an industry trends on social media, students reroute their lives to enter it. These signals are not neutral. They are engineered to funnel human capital toward whatever the system needs most urgently. And when the need passes, the system moves on without them. This is why so many men wake up at 40 and realize they never actually chose. They responded. They reacted. They were pulled along by incentives like iron filings to a magnet, believing movement meant agency. But magnets do not care which filing sticks. Meanwhile, the fields that carry meaning but not profit wither in silence. Education, art, research, public service, the roles that cultivate civilization rather than extract from it. They offer low wages, minimal prestige, and almost no security. The market does not reward them, so the ambitious abandon them, and the cycle reinforces itself. A society that measures worth only in profit will starve its soul to feed its machine. This is the quiet cruelty of the invisible hand. It does not punish you, it simply ignores what it cannot monetize. And in doing so, it conditions you to ignore it too. You stop asking if the work matters. You only ask if it pays. You stop asking if you are growing. You only ask if you are advancing. You stop asking if this path is yours. You only ask if others applaud it, and slowly your career ceases to be a vehicle for your becoming and becomes a slot the system needed filled. You trade your curiosity for compliance, your individuality for efficiency, and your life becomes a perfectly optimized answer to a question you never asked. The invisible hand does not drag you with chains. It leads you with applause. It rewards the behavior that sustains the machine and erodes the behavior that could free you from it. It is not malicious. It is indifferent. It does not care who you are. It only cares that the gears keep turning. And that is how it shapes a man's life without ever touching him. It whispers through salaries and titles and job postings, and before he notices, his days belong to something that does not even know his name. At first, you tell yourself it is just a rough season, the exhaustion, the numbness, the hollow victories. You assume it will pass when the next raise comes, or the next title, or the next bonus. But it never does, because what you are feeling is not fatigue, it is depletion. The system has a way of stripping a man down without him noticing. It begins by rewarding his output. Then it convinces him that his output is his worth. And before long, he stops being a man with a mind and a soul and becomes something simpler, something easier to measure. A unit of labor. This is why so many men at the top feel so strangely empty. They have everything they were told to want, yet they feel less human than they did at 20. Their calendars are full, but their lives are hollow. They no longer think in terms of who they are becoming, only in terms of what they are producing. The machine has no interest in who they are, only in how much they can yield. Adam Smith warned about this, though few remember. He feared that the extreme division of labor would reduce the worker to as stupid and ignorant as it is possible for a human creature to become. He did not mean lazy. He meant narrowed, stripped of curiosity, reduced to a single function. He knew that when you cut a man down to a single task, you do not just simplify his work, you shrink his mind. We see it now everywhere. White-collar burnout has become epidemic. Gallup found that nearly 9 out of 10 office workers have felt burned out. Depression and suicide rates among men in their 40s and 50s have surged, now the highest of any age group. These are not personal failures. They are the predictable side effects of being treated like replaceable components. A man can only live as a tool for so long before something inside him begins to fracture. And when it does, the system has no ritual for repair. It simply discards him and recruits another. Because to the market, you are not a person, you are capacity, and capacity can be replaced. The tragedy is not that men are failing. The tragedy is that they are succeeding at something that is erasing them. They think they are climbing, but they are being hollowed out. They think they are building, but they are being consumed. They traded their humanity for efficiency, and the applause that once sounded like triumph now sounds like machinery. Most men sense the trap long before they can name it. They know something is wrong. They know the victories feel hollow, the praise feels thin, the future feels like a treadmill. But knowing is not enough, because knowledge does not free you when the prison is made of approval. The system does not hold you with chains. It holds you with applause. Every time you hit a target, they celebrate you. Every time you sacrifice your time, they call you dedicated. Every time you burn a little more of yourself to keep the gears turning, they call you a leader, and each cheer gives you just enough dopamine to keep going. That is how they keep you quiet. That is how they keep you in place. If you walk away, you do not just lose a paycheck. You lose your identity. You lose the story people tell about you. You lose the approval of parents who brag about your title, the respect of peers who envy your salary, the fragile sense of pride that comes from being seen as on track. And losing that feels like dying, because for years you were trained to equate status with safety. As long as you are climbing, you are secure. The moment you stop, you are vulnerable. That is how deep the conditioning runs. Psychologists call it loss aversion, the human tendency to fear losing something more than we desire gaining something new. The system exploits this. It attaches your survival to your position. It convinces you that stepping off the path means falling into oblivion. It makes the alternative to compliance look like chaos. So you stay. Even as the work hollows you out, even as the meaning drains away, you stay. Because staying is rewarded and leaving is punished. Because obedience is safe and freedom is framed as recklessness. You tell yourself you are being rational, but what you are being is conditioned. You are not lazy. You are not weak. You are simply human, and you have been trained to confuse the applause of the system with proof that you are alive. And that is why most men never escape. They are not chained to their careers. They are tethered to the praise that built them. Escape does not begin with quitting your job. It begins with reclaiming your mind. The system wants you to believe your value is whatever it pays you for. It wants you to believe the market defines your worth. That status confirms meaning, that applause equals truth. As long as you believe that, you will stay obedient, no matter how hollow you feel. So the first step is to break that spell. You must separate who you are from what you produce. Sit with this question until it makes you uncomfortable. What am I proud of that no one has ever paid me for? Write it down. Not what earns applause, not what advances your career. What matters to you, even if it never becomes profitable. Those answers are not hobbies. They are evidence of your soul. They are the parts of you the market cannot measure, and because it cannot measure them, it cannot control them. They are the fragments of your real identity, and they are the seeds of your freedom. The second step is to build capital the market cannot replace. Most people build careers like products on a shelf. They optimize for market demand, and when demand shifts, they vanish. Instead, you must become the kind of person who cannot be replaced by demand. This does not mean chasing more credentials. It means cultivating rare, deep capabilities that no algorithm can replicate and no template can standardize. Systems thinking, creative synthesis, pattern recognition, independent judgment. These are not skills you collect like badges. They are ways of seeing, and once you see differently, you cannot be commodified. Build breadth as well as depth. Read beyond your industry. Study disciplines that seem unrelated. Follow your curiosity past the boundaries of what is useful. Learn to connect distant fields until you can create something no job description can fully contain. Because the less replaceable you are, the less control the market has over you. The third step is to stop designing a career and start designing a life. The market teaches you to build your existence around your job and fit your soul into the margins that remain. Reverse it. Decide what kind of days you want to live. Then let your work grow inside that shape. Ask yourself, if money were no object, what would a good day look like? Not a vacation day, a normal Tuesday. Where would you wake up? Who would you speak to? What would you build? How much space would you leave empty on purpose? Then start moving one piece of your current life toward that vision. Shrink your fixed costs so you can take risks. Refuse roles that consume your time but not your spirit. Say yes only to work that funds freedom, not work that feeds the machine. Design for time, not just income. Because time is where your life actually happens, and most men give theirs away without ever noticing. This will not make you rich quickly. It will make you sovereign slowly. It will give you the space to say no without fear and the clarity to say yes without doubt. And that is the point. Freedom is not won in a single leap. It is reclaimed in small, defiant choices. Choices that declare your life belongs to you, not to the invisible hand. You were not born to be priced. You were born to create value that cannot be priced. Value measured not in output, but in the fullness of the person who creates it. The machine does not care if you become that person, but you must, because if you do not, no one will. The market will not notice when you begin to change. It will not applaud when you stop chasing its approval. It will not care when you choose to become whole instead of efficient. And that is how you know you are finally free. Freedom will not feel like a celebration. It will feel like silence. The noise will fade, the spotlight will dim, and you will hear your own voice again for the first time in years. That voice will not give you a 5-year plan. It will not hand you a perfect blueprint. It will ask smaller, harder questions. Who are you without the titles? Who are you without the applause? Who are you when nothing is expected of you except to be real? Most men never face those questions. They live and die inside the roles they were handed. They mistake the shape of the system for the shape of themselves. But the truth is simpler and far more dangerous. You are not a role. You are not a function. You are not a vessel for productivity. You are a mind. You are a soul. And neither of those things can be priced. Adam Smith never promised the market would love you. He only described how it would use you if you let it. You were never meant to serve the invisible hand. You were meant to become someone it can never hold.